you all for joining. Nice to see you all, see your initials in the corner. Today, as you've seen with the marketing and you've kind of seen with the stuff that we've been sending out on LinkedIn, etc. Today's all about using research to solve some of your talent attraction challenges. And we're going to be hopefully putting a bit of an interesting spin on this and how Creed think about this particular topic. Going to kick me on, Johnny. I'm going to start with a bit of, before I do introductions, and then I'll keep using the word Johnny, so we'll do introductions a little bit later on. There's a reason for that. Kind of just as a bit of a starter, and whilst I can't get audience feedback on this like we can when we do this in person, just want people to think hypothetically whether you would buy a house without viewing it first, or would you buy a wedding dress, should you ever buy a wedding dress, without trying it on. And lastly, although probably shouldn't use this picture of the car, Johnny, because I think the answer would be yes to this one, but would you buy this car without test driving it? I think probably a lot of people would say yes, but let's imagine it maybe doesn't have an engine inside it or something. But you know, what's the point of, I guess, some of these hypothetical questions with that? There's probably people on this call, I would say, who are, Johnny, if you just want to kick all this slide through, that have probably bought media, whether, you know, not knowing whether their audience actually uses that media channel. Have you developed creative without knowing if it's relevant to the people that you're trying to attract? Have you potentially built a careers website without knowing if it appeals to your audience? Do you know if the pages that they want, what they want to see, or the user journey is what they expect? And I would assume that one of those things has maybe impacted individuals on this call today. So investments ultimately, we believe, really need research, whether that's personal kind of investments or whether that's professional investments. We make both of them as people, but we believe it strongly needs research to make the right decisions. And you know, attending a lot of events ourselves and being involved in quite a bit of things, tech and AI, just by the very nature of what we do. Clearly, tech and AI advancements are great, and I genuinely mean they are great. We're using it more and more, and you know, both elements of this certainly can help provide some shortcuts in some areas, etc. But you're kicking me on early, Johnny.
Well, I didn't know if you were stalling for the thing.
Yeah, no, you're right. And we will be using it more, but it's not great for everything. And it's not particularly great when you're asking it to generate AI images of Johnny and myself for our introductions. And as much information as you feed it, and you think you're taking shortcuts, it's not always perfect. And this is, whilst that is a bald guy wearing a decent suit, and that's a guy with an interesting haircut with a fine chin, that is not actually Johnny and myself. But yeah, quick introductions. Me, who's been rambling at you for the last 5 minutes, I'm Dave Walstow, been at Creed for pushing 8 years now. I'm associate director here, and I've been in this space for 16, 17 years. And Johnny, who I've worked alongside the whole time I've been at Creed, he's been here even longer. He's head of solutions development and has been instrumental in kind of how Creed have begun to think about research and talent insights, and it's kind of and he's going to be the backbone of a lot of what we talk through today. But getting back to this whole kind of tech stuff, you can probably a couple of slides, Johnny, we could go on. So yeah, that is actually us. So yeah, tech, it makes things easy. It does give us shortcuts. I am not at any point during any of this presentation suggesting that people don't use tech or AI. It will help you, but how are you going to stand out from everyone else if they're doing very similar things or using very similar tech or using AI in a very similar way? And ultimately, our industry is about reaching humans. It's about reaching people who aren't robots. And as they're not all in an algorithm. Clearly, you know, there's an emotive element to this, and people aren't daft. They will know if things aren't authentic. They will know if what you're advertising isn't relevant to them and it's catch-all. And we know with enough of the kind of the data and the insights that we see how much more relevant advertising has an impact on whether it's sales or whether it's applications. We know that to be true. And we just want to make sure that taking shortcuts doesn't detract from your audience's believability that what you're talking to them about is authentic and relevant. So how are we going to stand out? when everyone's using a lot of these similar shortcuts. They certainly are in our space, and we're seeing it across our sector. So it's about how do we do something that's slightly different. Well, as a bit of a slight aside that's related to that, I was reading a book recently, a guy called Michael Easter, and he wrote a book called The Scarcity Brain. And he believes, and I tend to agree with him, that humans are kind of predispositioned to very easily fall into something called the scarcity loop. And the scarcity loop is this bit on the screen now, that if there's an opportunity to do something, the rewards from it are unpredictable, and it's quick to repeat, humans will flock to that instinctively, without question, really. And I was going to use the slot machine, because the slot machine is a great example of that. But I think my son and his recent, I'm not going to call it addiction, that would be a strong word, but his interest in Pokemon cards would probably be a great example of that, where there's the opportunity to buy them. What comes out of those Pokemon cards is unpredictable and so exciting, and it's very quick to repeat. You can buy another packet, or if you buy multiple, you can just keep ripping them open and stuff. And I'm not going to mention any particular media, obviously, by name, but we probably, again, all on this call can have a think about, are we in cycles of doing things because the opportunity is there, the rewards are unpredictable, it's quick to repeat. We know there are some media out there where I can go and post a job. The rewards from that are going to be, am I going to get the perfect candidate or an awful candidate? But I might get the perfect one. I might get the one I've been looking for and not pay much cost per hire for them. And if I don't, you know what? I can put another tenner on there, another 500 quid, or I can post the job again or whatever. It's quick to repeat. And we can get into this loop. And getting out of that loop is really difficult, because there's a sense of risk. There's a, what if I stop doing that? What if I don't get that perfect candidate? Or what if it reflects poorly on me, etc. And today, I hope, Johnny in particular is going to take you through maybe how we can, on the next slide, Johnny, not give you the same feeling as this hamster who comes off this wheel very fairly unceremoniously, but trying to help you get off the wheel of doing potentially, I'm not saying everybody is, but doing very similar things and hoping for a slightly different result. And my final slide is just, again, I'll have a feeling from talking to our client base on a regular basis about things that are keeping them up at night, or challenges that they're currently facing, particularly on the, with the backdrop of the budget. You're being asked more and more to do more with less. We want the same results but spend more money, or do it with less people, or do it with fewer suppliers, whatever it might be. Your costs are increasing on media channels and advertising, etc., but returns seem to be diminishing. You're getting less for what you're spending each time. That's not reducing. There's an innate risk of getting off that wheel of I've done this, I've always done this, I'm nervous about doing something different. What if I don't get the applications? What if the hiring managers are going to be on my case? How will that look to my bot? There's loads of different things in terms of a risk standpoint. And that leads, and we've seen it lead for many of our clients, to an ever increasing reliance on more and more active media. So rather than doing the brand build, thinking about the creative, thinking about the relevancy in your marketing, it's become much more about where can I advertise quickly, easily, cheaply, and just rinse and repeat. And you can fall into that loop. And so Johnny's now going to take you through a couple of examples of how we've done this for other clients to great effect to get them out of this loop. And then we've got everyone on this call is going to be the first people who've seen some of our proprietary, if I say that word right, Johnny, research for the first time. So yeah, over to you.
Yeah, good stuff. Thanks, Dave. Yeah, so we're just going to talk you through a couple of examples, but before we do that, just some of the theory and the methodology of how we approach this for clients, really. Because if you're thinking about starting with research, it's a very broad topic. What is research? It can be anything. It can be lots of things. And where to start, I would imagine, is a bit like starting writing something with a blank page. You could go lots of different directions with it. So one way that we think about it is that answers, information generally come from two sources. It either comes from the market or it comes from candidates. So by the market, we're talking things like ONS, Indeed Market Insights, Horsefly, lots of different platforms that aggregate everything about the UK economy or certain elements of the UK economy into very big numbers that mean you've got opportunities or you've got challenges in certain areas. So you get the big numbers, and that is highly important to get quantifiable data about, what is the size of your audience, where are they, what are they earning, things like that. But that only gives you one perspective. The other thing, because that all of those channels, none of them speak to any candidates. So what the candidates actually want, you can understand where candidates are, the size of them, size of the audience through those tools. But what is going to move them? Are they in role currently? Are they looking? What is likely to make them move? What do they think of you? What do they think of the competition? That's how you're going to be able to create strategies or tactics or executions that are really going to help move those people and like a magnet kind of draw them to you. So the thing here and the thing that we thought about as we started really beefing up our research pedigree, the way that we could do it over the last year or two, is that there isn't one platform that enables both of those two things to be done, which is how we started doing more of this deep dive research. We call it Career Talent Insights. It's just a name for it. Here's some of the many channels. There's lots more, but we've got access to lots of different platforms in order to do work for clients to think, what is their problem? What do they need to know in order to solve that problem? And here's some typical challenges that clients have and that we've helped clients with. So what are the competition doing? Some people are like, right, we're losing people to that competitor over there. What are they doing? What are they doing that we're not doing? How do we stack up? So a real deep dive into what the competition is up to. How do we understand the audience? What do they want? Where are they? What are they going to, what's going to appeal to them for their next job? What's their expectation salary? Just finding out from an audience through a survey. There can be other methods as well. Targeting new skill sets. If you're looking at, right, okay, I'm hiring account managers, but actually where I'm getting them from, I need to get them from somewhere else. Where is that somewhere else? One of the pieces of work that we're going to talk you through is going to go into a little bit more detail on that, and the kind of macro data on how clients can widen where they get candidates from, or investigate new locations that they maybe not operating in before. You've got lots of highly detailed MI where you operate, but then you're going into a new place and it's a complete unknown. There's some of the things that we can help with. And as I kind of touched upon, it's all about the problem rather than the platform. And we've got a bit of a kind of detective theme on the slide here, but it's about understanding what the cause of the problem is, conducting some research to identify the answers for that cause, coming to a conclusion, and then changing something, drawing up a plan, action plan, for how you're going to put those insights into action. So that's all very hypothetical. Got two clients here that we're just going to talk some work that we've done over the last few months about what we've done. So Hilti, I think the Ferrari of power tools, high-end power tools, and they approached us to just help with account managers. Lots of competition, they're getting pressure, and they really wanted to, rather than have a strategy for account managers, split that up to say, where do we really get the best account managers from? Can we have a separate strategy for each of those segments, looking really for three of them? So we spoke to their people to understand what the job's like, who the best people are that join, and what made people join, stay, and perform there. We then, so it was leaders and their people that did the job. We summarized that to say, hey, these are the three profiles you should be looking for. This is what we should base on, and then we'll go to market to see what these what the candidates are looking for. So there's loads of information on that page. But essentially, we used talent mapping software to understand salaries that people had, where they worked, benchmark that salary, understand where they tended to have come from before, what the biggest employers were, all that sort of thing, to understand which ones they were more likely to win candidates from, where they might potentially struggle a little bit more. So construction being an example, right? We want to get people from construction. Some of those roles in construction, the salaries were really quite significantly higher. So, and there was a gender angle to it as well, wanting to increase the level of females. So we could see, right, if we're targeting construction, predominantly males. So if you go in there, these are the areas you should target, but just bear in mind that you're going to get, in high likelihood, males from that route. And then we asked a bunch of questions on a survey to understand from each of those sections, each of those 3 different audiences, what they thought to the client and the competition, had they heard of them, what they heard, and then testing things that we'd found out in the initial research. So the middle at the top, their benefits, which benefits are most important. We stress tested their propositions, the reason why people join, elements of their culture, which ones of these appeal to you. You can kind of see in the top left. So lots of things about what they did and what they offered, we played back to them to understand what's likely to appeal and where they're most likely to win. So you can see kind of in the top right, there's elements of the plan. So that is then, as we speak, being plugged into how they go from a general account manager attraction strategy to a specific, this is how we get people in from construction, this is how we get graduates, this is how we get people from B2B sales. So a bit of a whistle stop there on that first approach, but it's how we go from a broad general attraction strategy to really getting under the hood and being very specific to their challenge, but also to the propositions and everything they could offer in order to really put together a strong plan for attracting each of these 3 different audiences. Okay, so that's the first one. Lidl, we supported them in Doncaster. They just wanted much more in-depth knowledge of what the local market was like. They were kind of one side of the town. Is that an area that, and what are the challenges? Do people know about them? That sort of thing. So we went into, did market analysis for lots of elements of what Doncaster looked like, how many candidates there are there, what does the local market look like, who are the competitors, what salary are people paying, how does that benchmark against the competition, against the national average, where do people come from, where do they go to, what's the competition like in terms of advertising, how are people advertising, are people using agency, are they going direct to market under their own brand? And we came back with a plan of, right, okay, you can win with these things, and this is how we're going to plug it into your attraction strategy that we're managing. So to summarize, that's a very quick run through, really. Just two things there. It's about identifying the problem, creating the right approach to create your own data, applying insights specific to your challenge, and then putting those insights into action. Okay, so this is what Dave mentioned. I think this is getting shared with you after the presentation. We've done some proprietary research over the summer, 1,000 UK job seekers, to understand what they thought about a range of different things. There's lots of this research on the market. We wanted to come at it with our own angle from what's important to our clients and what challenges do we see in the market. So first question, we asked a number of different propositions, and lifestyle or rewards, what was more important to the audience? Lifestyle. So they were both very important. These of our 12 propositions, these are the top 2 that came out, and there's other research, I think, in the market, certainly in the last month or 2, about the lifestyle fit of job is the most important thing to people. Probably not going to be a surprise. Some of the other questions really wanted to find out about how loyal candidates are, not people that work for you or work for an employer, but when people are in that attraction funnel, how loyal are they? We asked if people kept speaking to other employers when they'd accepted an offer or even applying. 41%, so almost half of that audience, said they would keep on doing it. And 31% of people accepted a job and then declined it because they got a counter offer. So huge challenges that no doubt people on this call have faced. That there's just some numbers there to show the scale of the challenge, I suppose. How often do candidates tend to stay in a job? Over half of them stayed in five years or longer. And if you think from 2 years or longer, 87% of people. So the reason why we put this in is to understand how difficult it may be to get these candidates out of these, long-standing candidates out. The best candidates are likely to be in this 87% bracket, just to show the scale of the challenge of convincing these people. And if you are relying on active channels, it's likely 9% of the total audience is looking on active channels at any one time. So that's a stark illustration, I suppose. Lots of people, and likely the best candidates that you want, are not going to be looking on an active job board when your advert is likely to be out there. How quickly do candidates expect to hear back from people? 38%, so more than a third, expect to hear back, and this is not including auto responses, that type of thing, within 3 days, and that goes to 88% within a week. So it shows that not only is it a tough market, but the speed of response, if they're expecting to hear back from you, it's not within that window, they think about other things, they might have forgotten they've actually applied. So that was a very whistle stop. Few insights for the research report that's going to be shared afterwards.
Yeah, thanks, Johnny. We're just desperately trying to keep it to half an hour because we're conscious that you might have meetings straight after this one, and hopefully have some time for questions, which, by the way, there's a Q&A section at the top. I should have mentioned this at the beginning, so if you've got anything you want to ask, we'll tackle them shortly in a couple of slides. But yeah, in summary, to put it, break it down into these 3 things. Research isn't one size fits all. You can't just use one platform and get exactly what you need and expect that other people aren't using it and it's going to give you anything different. As Johnny used with the Hilti example, account managers is a really broad job title, but what they were looking for was really quite niche, be it in terms of type of account manager and location of those account managers. And so doing something that was tailored to them was much more important than doing something more generic and let's just say using a well-known job board to go and get some insights, which you could do, but you're not getting anything different to anybody else in that way. It is hard to break the cycle, as I kind of talked about earlier. We get into routines. We do similar things that we trust, but we do sometimes expect to get different results. And I think sometimes, unless you do something slightly differently or approach it in a slightly different way, it is sometimes hard to break that cycle and improve those results. And we think if you do, and we've seen with those 2 organizations that we've shared, but with plenty of other organizations that we've done this kind of work for as well, that you will get ahead of your competition. You'll attract those higher quality candidates. Your retention levels, what we've been told so far, will improve, etc. So we think there are huge benefits in doing this, but it does take a little bit of where we're going to start. How do we think about this? What do we want to tackle first? How long is it going to take? And going through that kind of process. But yeah, should have huge benefits. And I think, Johnny, with a minute and a bit to spare, we're about there, are we?
Yep.
So it's just questions, everybody. If anyone's got anything at all that they'd like to ask in the Q&A box up at the top of the screen, please feel free. What we're going to do after this is what we just shared there from our insight standpoint. That's just effectively us dropping down some of the key findings and putting them into PowerPoint, but there is a full report behind that we're going to send to everybody afterwards.